Hello, it's Hande Begüm Bumin Doyduk. Welcome to Negotiation Techniques, Part 3. In this part, we will be seeing the different types of negotiations. There are two opposite schools of negotiation, integrative and distributive negotiation. Negotiation is a part of our everyday life practices. Examples ranging from trading collectible cards as small kids to demanding a salary raise from our boss or bargaining at the bazaar. The term distributive implies giving out, dividing the value. By the very nature of business, the resources are limited and they should be divided and allocated. Two teams enter discussion with the goal of claiming as much value as possible. For example, the seller wants to get the highest price to be obtained, while the buyer wants to pay the lowest price. A distributive negotiation usually takes place in a no pre-existing relationship setting. A long-term relationship is also unlikely to develop from there. For example, buying or selling a car or house. In such a setting, we are dealing with somebody unknown to us, and it's a one-time only occurrence. There is no real benefit in investing in the relationship, so the parts are not so concerned about the other side's perceptions of themselves. The different sides' interests are self-serving. So we can say that distributive negotiations operate under zero-sum game, meaning when one side is winning, the other side is losing, so there is a win and lose situation. Each side defines an ultimate point for the settlement. When we look at the certain hints for distributive negotiations, first is playing the cards close to your chest, meaning giving little or no information to the other side. The less the other negotiator knows about our interest, the better is our position. This can include why we want to make the purchase, our preferences, or the point at which we would decline the deal. Expressing eagerness or need reveals a weakness that could be exploited by the other side. The opposite is also true. Trying to obtain as much information from the other side as you can. Any further information uncovered is a potential leverage to be negotiated to a better deal. Letting the other side knowing you have other options. The only information we should be revealing is the fact we have options. This includes other sellers we can purchase from at a competitive price. Reminding the seller of their competition shows our willingness to walk away if necessary. It also lets the seller know there will be no negative consequences for us to walk away from the deal. Making the offer first is another important thing. Whatever the first offer is, will generally act as a negotiation anchor. The anchor becomes the point on which the rest of the negotiation will likely revolve. Try to make the first offer to ensure discussion set off in our favor. The first offer, as we said, becomes a strong psychological anchor point, the one that sets the bargaining range. Being realistic, being too greedy will likely to result in no agreement. So keeping expectations realistic is important. Do not overshoot. If you claim aggressively or greedily, the other side may walk away. You may not have to repent of losing the opportunity to make the deal. Always start at the right price and right place. Do not close any significant information about your circumstances, including why you want to make the deal, your real interests or business constraints, your preferences among issues or options. Beneficial to know the other side's picture, the big picture they're in, learning as much as possible about the other side's circumstances and preferences, including their motive to deal, their real interests and business constraints, and their preferences among issues or options. When we look at the integrative negotiations, the word integrative means to join several parts into a whole. Integration implies cooperation or a joining of forces to achieve something together. It usually involves a higher degree of trust and a forming of relationship. Both teams want to walk away feeling they have achieved something that has value ideally. This means each team achieving what they want. In the real world of business, the results often tilt in favor of one side over the other. This is because it's unlikely that both sides will come to the negotiation table at equal strength and when the talk begins. Nonetheless, there are many advantages when both teams take a cooperative approach. Skillful, mutually problem-solving generally involves some form of making value-for-value concession. This is usually in conjunction with creative problem solving. So parties cooperate to maximize their benefits by integrating the interests, truly looking at the problem, searching for alternatives, evaluating them, and reaching a mutually acceptable decision. And thus, the situation is a win-win situation, meaning both sides of the negotiations are winning. So when we look at the hints for integrative negotiations usually involve many issues that are up for negotiation. Each side wants to get something of value while trading something of lesser value to them. In contrast, distributive negotiations generally revolve around the price or a single issue like price. Sharing. To understand each other's situation, both sides should share as much information as possible. This helps each side understand the other's interests. You cannot solve a problem without knowing the parameters. Cooperation is essential, therefore. Problem solving, finding solutions to each other's problems is another important issue. For example, offering something valuable to the other side that is of lesser value to you. If you can make this trade while realizing your goal, you have integrated your problems into a positive solution. So providing significant information in integrative negotiations is important about the circumstances and the reasons, the motivations of making a deal. Talking about the real interest and business constraints is important. Revealing and explaining in general terms your preferences among issues or options. Considering and revealing any additional information, capabilities or resources that might have interest for the other side could be added to the deal. So it can be the negotiation is not all over a single issue but multiple issues. Finding the creative option that will meet the interests of both parties to the greatest extent possible. We often use the two types of negotiations described before in our business and personal lives. Sometimes these two usually distinct forms of negotiation, distributive and integrative, can even overlap. By understanding these negotiation types, we can better be prepared in different situations. When we continue to learn, we can boost our personal and professional relationship and skills. By knowing how we can use these negotiation processes, we can harness the power of persuasion. When we look in one slide, the differences between the two negotiation schools, distributive and integrative, the first characteristic we are going to analyze is the outcome. For distributive negotiations, the outcome is seen as a win and lose situation, meaning one side is winning the negotiation, the other side is losing it. From an integrative negotiation point of view, the negotiation is seen as a win-win situation, meaning both sides are winning. Motivation for distributive negotiation is the individual gain, the self-interest. From the integrative negotiation, there is both the joint gain, meaning both sides' gain is considered, and also the motivation is, again, for the individual gain. Interests are opposed in distributive negotiations. In integrative negotiations, they are different. There are different interests, but not always opposite. The relationship is short-term, the short-term nature for distributive negotiations. For integrated, they are usually for longer-term relationships, sometimes can be short-term relationships too. The issues involved in distributive integration is single. As we have seen the example of buying a car or a house, we have seen that the primary issue was the price, so there was a single issue involved in that negotiation. In integrative negotiations, there are multiple issues considered. Ability to make trade-offs is not flexible in distributive negotiation, while it is flexible for integrative negotiations, and the solutions are not creative in distributive negotiations, but they are creative in integrative negotiations. As we have talked about, we are experiencing both types of negotiations in our daily lives. In the next part, in part 4, we will be seeing the different steps of the negotiation process. Thank you for your participation.